A common reason for referral to the genetic clinic is the birth of a child with a malformation. Some of these have a specific diagnosis, but in most cases we have to rely on empiric recurrence risk figures based on large-scale population studies. Birth defects involving the heart are the biggest single category. Selena, Dominic, thanks for coming along. My name is John Byrne, I'm the consultant in clinical genetics. The cardiologist sent me a letter asking me to see you in the clinic. Can I ask, was it your idea or their idea that you came to see us?
It was their idea.
Okay. So, I know that you've lost a baby with a heart problem. What was the baby's called?
David.
David. And how long is it now since David died?
It's 6 weeks.
Okay. Now, I had a detailed explanation in the letter from the cardiologist that David had a really very, very complicated heart malformation. So the arteries were the wrong way round on his heart, and there was also some valve problems, and there was nothing they could do to repair that. So what are the questions do you have in terms of looking forward to the future?
Well, do we know why that happened? That's the first thing.
Okay.
And obviously we would like to have children, so is it going to happen again, and is there anything we can do about that?
Okay. The difficulty with this is that David clearly had nothing else wrong with him apart from this very severe heart problem. He looked the same as all other babies. We've looked at his chromosomes and they look fine. So it looks to be what we would call an isolated malformation of the heart. And the difficulty is that we know that there is a genetic contribution, but it's not a simple genetic trait where you can give very precise figures of it happening again. So what we've done instead in this situation is we've looked at lots of families like yours and compared them, looked at them as a group, if you like, and said, okay, what happened when they had further children? And so the fancy word people use is an empiric recurrence risk. It's not based on any sort of theory, it's just simply looking to see. If we collected 100 families just like you and looked to see what happened to the next baby, we can then use that as guidance for you. Now the answer to that is that congenital heart problems are quite common. In about 1% of all babies will have a hole or a murmur or something. And about 2 or 3 per thousand will have a quite severe heart problem. Now, in your case, having had one previous baby with a complex heart defect, the chance of it happening a second time is about 10 times higher than the general population. So it's about a 2 to 3% risk of recurrence.
Why is that?
Probably, in fact, we're fairly certain it's because of genetic factors. So if you look at a variety of evidence, it suggests that it's a mixture of genes from both sides. It's not a single gene that's causing the problem, but it's a mixture of certain genes working together that predispose to the heart going off course in its early development. It's a very complex process, turning this simple tube into a 4-chamber heart. It's almost surprising it doesn't go wrong more often because it's such a complicated sort of folding bit of origami. We are working at the moment in research to try and identify all the genes that are responsible for this, and we'll probably end up being able in the future to do tests to predict who's at higher risk of having babies with heart problems and who isn't. But at the moment we can't do that because it's just too complicated. We haven't found the underlying cause. But the 2% figure is a real figure, so there have been hundreds of people just like you gone on to have another baby and they had a 2% recurrence risk. Now the problem with that figure is 2% sounds quite a low risk to me, but you've lost a baby. So when I say there's a risk, even if I say it's 1%, 0.5%, the word risk kind of echoes, and you think, well, knowing my luck, I'll be the one. It's almost the reverse of winning the lottery. Once it's gone wrong, you feel like it's going to happen again. You have to try and break away from that a little bit and sort of be objective.
I suppose because there's always risks anytime anyone gets
absolutely.
pregnant.
Everybody's got about a 2% risk of something going wrong of one sort or another. This is a sort of extra couple of percent because of your past history. But if you turn that on its head, that means there's a much better than 95% probability that if you got pregnant again, the baby would be fine. And I think that's the important way to look at it. Turn it around and think of this as a positive, not as a negative.
But when you say that you take it empirically or from other cases, then there is a chance that it's just something that we don't know about yet, or you haven't discovered yet. Or...
That's right. I mean, so the possibility is in that crowd of 100, there are some people who've got a high risk, where it's actually maybe 1 in 10 or 1 in 4, and others where the risk is actually almost none at all, but they kind of mix together. All I can do is give you the mixed risk, if you see what I mean, that at the moment I can't tell you apart from the crowd. So it's a 2% is an average risk. The other important thing to say is, of course, we can look at the baby's heart on the ultrasound and reassure you early in pregnancy that everything is going according to plan.
Okay.
And it does also give you the option, if the baby's heart were to be severely malformed, not to carry on the pregnancy. So that kind of gives you that, if you like, that umbrella that allows you to try again, because at least you know that you're going to get to see the baby's heart developing early on, and you still have the option not to carry on if a problem developed.
Okay. Let's say that we do get pregnant and we are unfortunate enough to lose another baby, to be in that 2%. On trying for a third time, would that percentage increase even further?
Yeah, because that would actually, if thinking about that crowd scene, if you've had 2 babies with a heart problem, that kind of puts you into another group, a smaller group, where again, if you look empirically at that smaller group who've had 2 previous babies with a heart problem, then their recurrence risk is at least 10%.
So it's not
Because
it's not the act of having a baby that increases the risk. It's
That's
just
right.
putting us
It
into
just
a new group.
it picks you out of the crowd. It tells us something about your genetic makeup. If something's happened more times, it means you're probably more genetically susceptible than the next couple. It's just that you look alike. We all look alike. We can't tell those people apart from the crowd until it's happened.
Okay.
But as things stand at the moment, your risk is relatively small. And as I say, the take-home message is that the chance of you not having a baby with a heart problem is more than 97%. People don't feel lucky when something's gone wrong, and so it's very important to give risk figures every way around. If you say a 1 in 30 risk, that sounds high. If you say a 3% risk, that sounds a bit better. If you say 97% probability that it'll be okay, that sounds much better. And given that people are feeling negative about their chances, it's perfectly reasonable to present it in that slightly more positive light, because that kind of balances up their thought process.